in this court.
Right, how you doing, mate? So,
all good, thanks. All good.
second time in Australia, how you finding it?
I haven't really had much time to find it at all. My schedule's the same as the last time I was here. 3 cities, 4 days, doing 4 shows this time. 6 flights, I think, in about 4 days. So yeah, I won't have much time to take anything in.
Did you get a chance to see anything when you were here last time?
Nah, no, in and out, man. Traveling, doing the shows. I mean, that's really one of the only ways you can make it financially viable. Because obviously Grime's still really underground.
Yeah. I noticed on Twitter recently you said the state of Grime's pretty fucked at the moment. And I've noticed a couple of other people here or there say similar sort of sentiment.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on why you might think that and what you think needs to maybe happen?
A lot of it's like a false economy.
Yeah.
So, like, Grime's a buzzword, right? Where we have a lot of problems in the UK of people talking up grime. They don't really know what they're talking about. You know, there's really successful black musicians in the UK right now, you know, that are rapping or doing urban music, black music, but they're not making grime music, but they're still being labeled as grime. So like a lot of people in the wider music industry or, you know, society at large view that as grime doing really well. And we've had a great couple of years since like 2014, 2015. You know, obviously the success of Skepta and Stormzy has been incredible. They're doing amazing, you know, around the world. Incredible record sales. You know, Wiley put out his most successful album ever. Kano blessed us with a few sick tracks and a really good album as well, which was, you know, across many genres. But for the underground, for the emerging artists, you know, they're still not eating properly. So that's why I say it's like a false economy. It's like everyone's paying lip service to grime and giving it props, but when it comes to giving it proper positioning and proper, you know, like the respect that it deserves for what it's done and how long it's been around for, and the creativity of it as well, because it's such a unique, different sound that's managed to stay unique and different, not get washed out, not get like exploited like so many other scenes are in London. You know, it's been around for a decade and a half plus now, approaching 2 decades. So, you know, for something to be relevant for that long and produce artists for that long, you know, it really deserves more than it gets as a scene. I think when money comes around in grime, it really has a negative effect, more so on the creativity than maybe in any other genre, because people start holding stuff back, people start not wanting to work with other people, whereas every other genre, when you inject money into it, people start doing more, they start doing better, they start cross-pollinating and featuring and working with each other, networking, whereas for some reason in grime that kind of doesn't happen. When the money gets injected, people start second-guessing themselves, they start, you know, looking at what got them to the dance in the first place and sort of almost leaving it behind or moving away from it at least. That's always been a problem, you know, from day dot. So many artists get signed off the back of legitimate grime hype. But then when their music starts coming out, it's different, you know. So
they never understood that because, you know, they got to that position for doing that music.
Yeah, and I mean, you can blame like pressure from labels and managers and producers and whatever, but at the end of the day, you're accountable as an artist for the music that you make and release. You know,
and it's there forever. What would be a commercial grime track if you could think of one?
I mean, commercial just means something that sells a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's all it means. Pop just means it's really popular. So like that could be anything, you know, from Pow, Next Hype, Feed 'em to the Lions, you know, to like Man Don't Care, that sold loads, you know. Kano 3 Wheel Ups did really, really well. You You know, Skepta, That's Not Me. Skepta, That's Not Me is probably like an amazing example because sonically that's a straight up and down traditional grime sounding record. It's got, you know, a call and response chorus. It's got all those sounds that were made famous in like 04 in the beat, in the production. You know, that
one line flows.
Exactly, and it's straight up and down Route 1 football grime, and it did really, really well. So it shows that, like,
it can happen, yeah.
When it has that sort of groundswell. But that's kind of what always been the case with grime. Like going back to Pow was not really like permitted in playlists and on radio or mainstream commercial radio, just because the people that were in charge of those platforms just didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I feel like now,
maybe it's taken a generation for those people to be out of the jobs. And
yeah, there's more people in those positions of power that have grown up with grime and do understand it, exactly. But still, it's not enough. You know, you're still seeing a lack of that out there. And I think, you know, you can't just blame the system and the media and, you know, faceless, nameless, you know, dark entities that are sort of blocking everything out. You know, we have our own faults as well, like you said. You know, there's not enough output from the artists. There's not enough quality grime output from the artists. The big name artists will do a handful of singles and fly. That really accelerate their careers.
Have you ever dabbled in production yourself?
Only like refixes.
Yeah.
And that was like 2002.
You must be tempted though.
No. So for me, I'm a curator rather than a creator. Like, I like to collect things. I'm entirely happy being a fan of something without needing to try and do it myself. Like, I'm really happy to just appreciate from afar.
I think a lot of other people should have that attitude as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is a thing now when people like something, they decide that they're going to try it themselves, and you know, I think that's cool. Like, people trying, because the tools, like, everything's been democratized as well. Like, the tools are out there for everyone to have a go at everything. The problem arises, obviously, is when people feel entitled to get respected for doing something that they've not proven themselves in at all. You know, so just because you're good at one thing, people aren't automatically going to respect you doing another thing.
I think maybe it is that grime has a problem with good albums. I feel like there's great singles, you know, but when it comes to translating to a full album, a lot of people maybe veer off into more hip-hop territory, or they go the full grime route and it maybe just doesn't work. I
think it's a challenge to do a solely grime album and have it work, because there's no real blueprint there for that sort of success. You know, as you said, Wiley just dropped Godfather 2, but the Godfather 1 album that he brought out last year was his most successful album ever. It's the highest charting album he's ever released. And that was straight grime the whole way through. The whole way through it was grime. It was the sort of music you wanted to hear Wiley make. And like, for that to be his 11th album before he got there and saw that success off a straight grime album, you know, Skepta pretty much. Konnichiwa was a straight grime album as well, and that did really, really well. But you're always going to have artists that are going to want to work outside and around. You know, when Stormzy first came through, he wasn't, you know, making grime. He was making sort of rap. Yeah. You know, the kids coming through now, it's very rare that they listen to one type of music anyway. So the artists emerging, it's very rare that they're going to just make just grime. Like, grime tracks don't get playlisted.
Yeah.
You know, grime tracks, it's almost like they hit a glass ceiling. You know, they don't get the same sort of treatment that maybe more instantly palatable music gets. Yeah. If you look at like the playlist of One Extra, for example, there's very little grime on their daytime playlist. But
there might be grime artists.
Yeah, there might be grime artists, but there'll be a lot of sort of similar stature artists from like, you know, like Afro swing, Afro bashment is a great example, or that sort of marimba sounding influenced auto-tune rap, whatever that genre is, because it's kind of its own sound again. Yeah. But those sounds are so more mainstream sounding just by default that, you know, they are allowed into that mainstream space more so than a straight up grime track would be, despite some of these grime tracks having enormous relevance, you know.
So what's next in your immediate future?
Go back home, work really, really hard on my projects that I've got coming up. We've got the Rinse show once a month on the Grime show residency, rotating on that alongside Spooky, Grand Mixer and AG. That's really fun. I just get to go and have fun on that. It's really nice to come away from doing a weekly radio show.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, I imagine.
Well, it's like, I've been a reporter for so long, like reporting on what's happening week in, week out, and these are the new releases, and I have to make sure everyone knows about the new releases and everyone's projects. And, you know, I'm really passionate about grime doing well, so that meant a lot to me to be able to do that and do it to the best of my abilities. But now when I'm going to radio, like I can pick a subject and just play an hour of that.
You must get a lot of, you know, obviously everyone's going to be sending you tunes, you must get a lot of pressure in that sort of respect.
I think, when you do a weekly show, you definitely get that sort of pressure, you know. And now Spyro and Rude Kid can get all that. Trying to look at the silver linings, man.